I thought I was saving them. Turns out, I was the one who needed saving. When I met Sarah at that church charity event, she looked like a woman drowning in slow motion. Her eyes held that particular exhaustion that comes from fighting battles alone, and her children, Lily, 14, and Sam, 12, clung to her like life preservers in rough seas. Their story tumbled out over coffee, an abusive ex-husband, custody battles, financial struggles. Every protective instinct I'd cultivated over 42 years of bachelor life suddenly focused on this fragile family. Thomas was a monster, she whispered that first night, her voice catching as she spoke. The things he did. The children still have nightmares. 6 weeks. That's all it took before I proposed. My friends called me insane, but they didn't see Lily flinch when a door slammed, didn't witness Sam's 1,000-yard stare when male voices rose. I could give them stability, safety, the childhood they deserved. We married quietly at the courthouse, and I moved them into my 4-bedroom colonial, the house I'd bought thinking someday I'd fill it with my own family. The requests started immediately, wrapped in trauma and delivered with tears. "Mark," Sarah approached me 3 days after the wedding, her voice tentative. "Lily's homecoming is next week. All her friends shop at Nordstrom. She's already the new kid." She let the implication hang. $300 later, Lily examined the dress I'd bought with the critical eye of a fashion editor. "It's from last season," she announced flatly. "Everyone will know." When I suggested she could exchange it, Sarah's face crumpled. "She's been through so much, Mark," she pleaded. "Can't we just get the right one? For her confidence?" So I bought the right one. $450. Sam. Needed a gaming setup, therapeutic, according to Sarah. It helps him connect with other kids without the anxiety of face-to-face interaction, she explained earnestly. I spent an entire Saturday assembling the desk, mounting monitors, running cables while Sam played on his phone 6 feet away. When I asked if he wanted to help to learn how it all worked, he glanced up briefly. "That's what you're for, right?" he muttered before returning to his screen. Sarah touched my arm gently when I tensed. "Give him time, honey. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. Every no triggered a production. Lily would lock herself in her room, sobbing loud enough for me to hear through the walls. Sam would go silent for days, moving through the house like a ghost, ensuring I felt the weight of his disappointment. And Sarah, my wife, would look at me with those exhausted eyes, the same ones that had drawn me in, and remind me what they'd endured. "You don't understand trauma, Mark," became her constant refrain. "You grew up in a stable home. They need to feel safe and loved right now, not disciplined." I started working Saturdays to cover the mounting expenses. Private therapy sessions, specialized tutoring, confidence-building activities that somehow always required new equipment or fees. My construction foreman position paid well, but not well enough for 3 people who spent like they had hedge fund trust funds. "You're not my real dad," Lily would declare, wielding those words like a scalpel whenever I suggested limits. "You can't tell me what to do." "Then maybe your real dad should be paying for this," I'd said once, exhausted after a 12-hour shift. The house went silent. Sarah didn't speak to me for 3 days, and when she finally did, it was to explain how emotionally violent my words had been. Sam perfected a different approach. He'd call me Mark Dad when he wanted something, testing the title like a key in a lock. "Mark Dad? There's this baseball camp all my friends are going to," he'd start. His voice suddenly warm. Once he got what he wanted, I'd go back to being just Mark, or more often, nothing at all. I kept a mental tally of the appreciation I never received. The birthday dinner I cooked while they ordered pizza instead. The vacation I planned that they spent complaining about the hotel. The Christmas morning where they opened thousands of dollars in gifts with the enthusiasm of DMV employees processing paperwork. But it was the small cruelties that wore me down. Finding my tools scattered in the rain after Sam borrowed them, Lily using my grandmother's quilt to protect her floor while painting her nails, Sarah forgetting our anniversary but remembering her ex's birthday with a sadness that filled the house. 3 years in, I realized something disturbing. They weren't healing from their trauma, they were weaponizing it. The pattern revealed itself slowly, like a photograph developing in reverse, what seemed clear becoming increasingly distorted until I couldn't recognize what I'd been looking at all along. It started with small observations. Lily crying over a canceled shopping trip, real tears streaming down her face, only to answer a friend's call 30 seconds later with perfect cheerfulness. "Yeah, I'm literally dying of boredom," she laughed into the phone. "My stepdad is being super weird about money again." No trace of the devastation she'd performed for my benefit. Sam had his own repertoire. Anxiety attacks struck with Swiss precision whenever yard work needed doing. Panic attacks materialized when his grades slipped and consequences loomed. But I'd catch him at his gaming setup, steady-handed, trash-talking opponents without a tremor in his voice, moments after claiming he was too overwhelmed to take out the garbage. The most elaborate performance happened last spring. Lily wanted to attend a music festival, 3 days, 500 miles away, with kids I'd never met. When I expressed concerns about safety and supervision, she collapsed into hysterics. "You don't trust me," she wailed, tears flowing freely. "You think I'm some kind of slut like Thomas always said? I finally feel normal enough to want normal teenage experiences. And you're taking that away from me." Sarah materialized instantly, her timing impeccable as always. "Mark, honey," she said softly, rubbing my shoulder. "This is actually progress. Her therapist says social integration is crucial at this stage." Of course, I hadn't been invited to these therapy sessions where such insights were apparently shared. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I walked past Lily's room and heard her on the phone. "Yeah, the crying thing totally worked," she was saying. "He's such a pushover. Mom coached me on mentioning Thomas. Mark loses his shit when we bring up our dad." The financial hemorrhaging accelerated. Sarah remained unemployed, though her reasons evolved creatively. Anxiety disorder, chronic fatigue, unspecified autoimmune issues that prevented work but not shopping trips or lunch dates with friends. She'd been seeing a therapist on my insurance who apparently validated every reason she couldn't contribute financially. "I'm doing the emotional labor of healing this family," she told me when I suggested even part-time work. "Isn't that worth something to you?" Meanwhile, the demands escalated. Sam's travel baseball team cost $8,000 a year, not counting equipment, travel, and hotels. Lily's therapeutic horse riding, because traditional therapy wasn't reaching her, ran $1,200 monthly. Sarah needed a newer car. Hers made her feel unsafe, though it was only 3 years old and perfectly maintained. I took on credit card debt for the first time in my life. Then a second card. Then a home equity line of credit for Sarah's dental work, cosmetic veneers she insisted were necessary for her self-esteem. The revelation came accidentally. Sarah's sister, Patricia, visited for a weekend. They'd been drinking wine on the deck, not realizing the bathroom window was open. "I was fixing the running toilet when I heard them. Girl, you got him completely trained." Patricia laughed. Sarah's response chilled me to the bone. "It's easy. Men like Mark need to feel needed. You give them a mission, saving the broken family, and they'll work themselves to death trying to accomplish it. The kids know their roles. A few tears, some trauma talk, and he caves every time." "Don't you feel bad?" Patricia asked. "For what?" Sarah replied. "For ensuring my children have the life they deserve?" Mark chose this. Nobody forced him to marry me. He wanted to be the hero, so I let him. It's a fair exchange. He gets to feel important. We get security. "But the kids treating him like shit," Patricia pressed. "They're protecting themselves from attachment," Sarah explained casually. "It's actually healthy, according to everything I've read about blended families. Better than them getting too close and then getting hurt when things don't work out." "You planning on things not working out?" Patricia asked. Sarah's pause stretched long enough for me to stop breathing. "I'm planning on things working out exactly as long as they need to," she finally answered. "The kids will be in college soon." Mark's good for that, at least. I sat on that bathroom floor until my legs went numb, processing the truth that my marriage was a long con and I was the mark. That night, I started writing down every story they'd told me about their father. By morning, I had 3 different versions of the same traumatic event. The truth lived in details they'd forgotten to coordinate. According to Lily's version, Thomas had thrown a plate at the wall during an argument when she was 8. In Sam's telling, it was a glass, and he was 10, which would have made Lily 12, not 8. Sarah's account involved an entire set of dishes destroyed in a rage when the children were very young, though she could never specify their ages. I became a detective in my own life, cataloging inconsistencies with the thoroughness of a prosecutor building a case. The children who supposedly cowered from their abusive father showed no signs of hypervigilance. Loud noises didn't make them flinch. Male anger didn't trigger visible fear responses. They navigated conflict with the confidence of kids who'd never truly been threatened. The court records told a different story than Sarah's narrative. I'd requested them through a private investigator, paying cash to keep it off our joint accounts. Thomas had fought for equal custody. The judge had found no evidence of abuse, but Sarah had been granted primary custody based on stability of environment and her role as primary caregiver during the marriage. The restraining order she'd mentioned, temporary, dismissed after investigation, never reinstated. Thomas's social media painted a picture of a man desperate to maintain connection with his children. Birthday posts every year. Happy 17th birthday to my beautiful daughter. Dad loves you always. Father's Day pictures from before the divorce showing an engaged, affectionate parent. Comments from mutual friends expressing confusion about why the kids never visited him anymore. The financial records revealed Thomas never missed a child support payment. In fact, he often paid early and had voluntarily increased the amount when he'd received a promotion. The Christmas and birthday gifts Sarah claimed never arrived? I found receipts in her email. She'd been returning them for store credit. The investigator uncovered something worse. Sarah had coached the children to make vague accusations during the custody hearings. Not enough for criminal charges, but sufficient to poison the well. She'd presented herself as the protective mother, shielding her babies from a dangerous man, while systematically alienating them from their father. The therapist Sarah had been seeing, Dr. Regina Faulkner, who ran a practice specializing in empowering women through strategic divorce recovery. Her website featured testimonials from women who'd successfully reimagined their family structures for optimal outcomes. Code for weaponizing children against fathers while securing maximum financial support. Tracked down Thomas's number and called from a burner phone. During my lunch break, "Hello?" came his tired but kind voice. "Thomas? This is Mark Stevens. I'm Sarah's new husband," he interrupted. No anger, just resignation. "Are the kids okay?" That question broke something in me. Here was the supposed monster, asking about children who'd been trained to hate him, while I, the supposed savior, was calling to gather intelligence for my escape plan. They're fine," I managed. "I need to ask you something. Did you ever abuse them?" He cut in with a bitter laugh. "No, but it doesn't matter what I say, does it?" Sarah's made sure of that. "I haven't seen my kids in 3 years, Mr. Stevens. Not because I don't want to, but because she's convinced them I'm dangerous. Every time I try to reach out, she files something new with the court. Harassment, stalking. I've spent $30,000 on legal fees just trying to get phone calls with my own children." "Why didn't you fight harder?" I asked. "How do you fight parental alienation when the system believes mothers by default?" He responded, pain evident in his voice. "When your children have been coached to fear you, I could force visitation, traumatize them further, prove Sarah's narrative that I'm the bad guy. Or I can wait, hope that someday they'll be old enough to see the truth. It's killing me, but what choice do I have?" We talked for an hour. Thomas was an accountant who'd been laid off during economic downsizing 6 months into their divorce, the catalyst Sarah had used to paint him as unstable and unreliable. He'd rebuilt his career but never recovered his reputation as a father. "Take care of them," he said before hanging up. "Whatever Sarah is, those are still my kids." That night, I watched my family at dinner. Sarah complained about the restaurant I'd chosen for our weekly Friday night out. Too loud, too casual, too something. Lily spent the entire meal on her phone, occasionally surfacing to criticize the food. Sam ordered the most expensive item on the menu, took 3 bites, and declared it gross. I spent weeks perfecting my plan. They thought they had broken me into submission, but they had no idea what a patient man was capable of when he finally stopped being patient. Friday arrived with unusual clarity, the kind of crisp evening where every detail seems etched in high definition. I'd chosen this night specifically. Thomas was prepared, the legal documents were filed, the movers were scheduled for tomorrow morning. 3 years of marriage reduced to a series of contingency plans and strategic preparations. "Why are we eating at home?" Sarah asked, irritation clear in her voice. "It's Friday." "Thought we'd have a nice family dinner," I replied, plating the pot roast I'd spent all afternoon preparing. Her favorite, once upon a time when she'd still pretended to care about things I did for her. "This looks gross," Sam announced before even sitting down. His default response to anything requiring gratitude. "Then don't eat it," I said mildly, which earned me a sharp look from Sarah. I usually would have cajoled, offered to make something else, apologized for disappointing him. Lily emerged from her room 20 minutes late. Despite 3 calls to dinner, "I'm going to Madison's later," she announced rather than asked. "No, you're not," I responded calmly. The table went silent. I never said no without being talked out of it. "Excuse me?" she said, her tone ice cold. "You're not going to Madison's." "We're having a family dinner," I repeated. "You can't—" she started. "I can," I interrupted. "I pay for the roof over your head, the food on this table, the phone in your hand. So tonight you're sitting here and eating dinner with the family you claim to be part of when you need something." Sam's face darkened. "This is nonsense," he muttered, pulling out his phone, that $800 insult to my generosity, and began aggressively scrolling. "Put it away," I said firmly. "Make me," he challenged. The calculated defiance in his voice, he knew exactly how far he could push, exactly how much disrespect I'd swallow to keep the peace. "Not tonight." "Gladly," I said, reaching over and taking the phone from his hands. What happened next was deliberate, not accidental. Sam grabbed for it, and in the theatrical struggle he'd initiated, the phone fell to the floor. He stomped on it hard, the screen shattering with a satisfying crunch. "Look what you did!" he screamed. "You broke my phone." Sarah gasped. "Mark!" "How could you?" she cried out. "I didn't break anything. Sam just destroyed his own property," I stated calmly. "It's not mine. It's yours," Sam shot back. "You bought it. And you're buying me a new one. Tonight. The new iPhone." The entitlement in his voice was breathtaking. He'd deliberately destroyed an expensive item and immediately demanded an upgrade. This was their pattern distilled to its essence. Manufacture a crisis, blame me, demand compensation. "No," I said simply. "What do you mean, no?" Sarah's voice pitched higher. He broke his phone. "And I'm not replacing it," I repeated. "You're such an asshole," Sam shouted, standing up, his chair scraping back. My real dad would never treat us like this. There it was. The weapon they'd been sharpening for 3 years, deployed whenever I showed any spine. Your real dad? The phantom perfect father they'd created from the ashes of a man they'd helped destroy. "Your real dad?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "You mean Thomas? The one who's been begging to see you for 3 years? The one whose calls your mother blocks? That real dad?" Sarah went white. "Mark, stop," she warned. "At least he was a real man," Lily spat, joining her brother's assault. "He never got in our way. He was a better dad than you'll ever be." "A real man?" I laughed, and something in that sound made them all step back. "A real man who you haven't seen in 3 years because your mother convinced you he was dangerous? Who pays child support early every month while you live off my income? Who sends gifts your mother returns for store credit?" "You're lying!" Sam shouted desperately. "Am I?" I turned to Sarah. "Sarah, tell them about the Christmas presents, the birthday cards. Tell them about Thomas calling the house while they're at school, begging for just 5 minutes to hear their voices." Sarah's mask slipped completely. "You don't understand?" she started. "I understand perfectly," I cut her off. "You've weaponized these children against their father and tried to do the same thing to me. The only difference is I'm not their father. I'm just the fool who thought he was rescuing a family in need." "Mark, please!" Sarah's tears started, right on cue. "Save it," I said coldly. "I've seen this performance too many times. Lily, Sam, congratulations. You want your real father? You're getting him. Pack your things." "What?" Lily gasped, her aggression evaporating. You're going to live with Thomas, tonight, all three of you, I announced. You can't do that. Sarah stood up, no longer crying. This is our home. This is my home, I corrected. You're my wife, not my property owner. And as of the paperwork I filed this morning, you're not even that for much longer. The silence that followed was complete. No more performances, no more manipulation. Just the naked truth hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. As I watched them scramble to pack their few possessions, I realized they were finally getting what they'd always claimed to want, a life without me in it. The drive to Thomas's apartment complex took 37 minutes. I know because I watched every number tick by on the dashboard clock, memorizing this final journey with my 3-year mistake. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, cycling through her playbook. Tears, threats, seduction, guilt. The kids huddled in the back, silent for once, their phones dark, their defiance evaporated. "Mark, honey, please," she begged. "Let's talk about this at home." The kids didn't mean what they said. "Yes, they did," I replied. "And so did you that night with Patricia. Fair exchange, right? I get to feel important, you get security?" She froze. In the rearview mirror, I saw Lily and Sam exchange glances. The first time in 3 years I'd seen them look genuinely uncertain. "You don't understand," she started again. "Stop. Just stop," I interrupted. "I understand that you took a good man, painted him as a monster, and stole his children. I understand that you saw me as the next target. I understand that you trained Lily and Sam to see kindness as weakness." "Where are we going?" Sam asked, his voice cracking. Not the planned emotional manipulation, but actual fear. "To your real father," I answered. "The one you just told me was better than I'd ever be, Mom," Lily whispered, the single word carrying all the weight of a child realizing the adults had failed them. Sarah's final gambit was pathetic. "He won't take us," she said desperately. "He hasn't even tried to see them, because you threatened him with restraining orders every time he tried," I shot back. "But guess what? He's expecting you. I called him 3 hours ago. Thomas lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. Clean, safe, but a far cry from my 4-bedroom colonial. His Toyota Camry sat in the assigned spot, 6 years old, well-maintained. The man who answered the door looked older than his 38 years, tired, but somehow dignified. Lily? Sam? His voice broke on their names. The children stood frozen, confronting the reality that their monster was just a broken man who loved them. No rage, no violence, just tears streaming down his face as he looked at children he hadn't seen in 3 years. "I'll help with the bags," Thomas said to me. Man to man, no animosity in his voice. We unloaded in silence while Sarah tried one more manipulation. "Kids, tell Mark you want to go home," she urged them. "Tell him you don't want to stay here." But they couldn't speak. The cognitive dissonance was too severe. Everything they'd believed was crumbling. Their father, the supposed abuser, was gentle and welcoming. Their stepfather, the supposed pushover, had spine enough to walk away. Their mother, the supposed victim, was revealed as the architect of everyone's misery. "Sarah," Thomas said quietly, "there's a pull-out couch. You can stay until you figure something out. But the kids' rooms are ready. I never changed them just in case." That broke Sam. He started sobbing, real tears, not the practiced kind. "Why did you leave us?" He asked his father. "I didn't leave you, son," Thomas replied gently. "I've been here the whole time." I pulled out the envelope I'd prepared, copies of the court documents, the returned presents receipts. 3 years of Thomas's attempts to maintain contact. "This is the truth," I said, handing it to them. "Do with it what you will." Sarah made one last attempt. "Mark, please, we can work this out. The kids need stability." "The kids need honesty," I countered. "They need their father. They need to learn that actions have consequences." I turned to Lily and Sam. "You wanted me gone from your lives. Congratulations. You got your wish." But what about college?" Lily asked, her priorities unchanged even in crisis. "That's between you and your parents now," I replied. "Your actual parents. This is abandonment," Sarah shrieked. "I'll sue. My attorney's card is in that envelope," I said, cutting her off. He'll explain why you have no case. I never adopted them. I have no legal obligation to continue supporting children who aren't mine, especially after documented emotional abuse and financial exploitation. I looked at Thomas. I'm sorry, I said sincerely, for believing the lies. For being part of this? He nodded. Take care of yourself, Mark, he replied. The walk back to my car felt like emerging from underwater, each step lighter than the last. Behind me, I heard Sam ask Thomas, Do you really want us here? I've wanted you here every day for 3 years, Thomas answered, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah's last words were predictable. You'll regret this, Mark. You'll be alone. I turned back one final time. I've been alone for 3 years, Sarah, I said. I just didn't know it. I drove into my future without looking back, finally free from people who confused kindness with weakness and generosity with obligation. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my apartment, a 2-bedroom in a building with a gym and a pool I actually have time to use. The furniture is mine, chosen without committee, without criticism. The silence isn't lonely. It's peaceful. Sarah works at Target now. The divorce was uncontested. She couldn't afford to fight it, and I documented enough emotional and financial abuse to make any claims irrelevant. She'd tried to claim alimony, but 3 years of marriage and her deliberate unemployment worked against her. The judge saw through it, especially with her recorded admissions to Patricia entered as evidence. Thomas sends updates occasionally. We're not friends, too much history for that, but we share a strange bond. The kids are adjusting. Without their mother's constant poison, they're slowly learning who their father really is. Lily takes community college classes and works part-time at a bookstore. No more designer clothes or therapeutic horseback riding. Sam plays in a local recreational league, rides his bike to practice. His phone is a basic model Thomas bought him, with the understanding that if it breaks, he buys the next one himself. They've tried reaching out to me twice. Once, a text from Lily. I'm sorry. We didn't understand. I didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, don't get rebuilt. The second time, Sam left a voicemail. I know you probably hate us, but I wanted you to know that I get it now. What we did. What Mom did. I'm sorry. Maybe someday I'll be ready to forgive them. They were children, weapons in their mother's war. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it certainly doesn't mean reopening doors better left closed. Sarah's attempts to reconnect bordered on harassment until my attorney sent a cease and desist letter. Her final email, sent just before the legal deadline, was a masterpiece of delusion. Despite everything, I know you still love us. When you're ready to be a family again, we'll be waiting. I forwarded it to my attorney and blocked her email address. My bank account is recovering. My credit cards are paid off. The house sold for enough to clear the home equity line and leave me with a decent reserve. I'm dating someone now, cautiously, slowly, with eyes wide open. She has her own career, her own apartment, her own life. She wants a partner, not a savior. The greatest revenge wasn't destroying them or seeing them suffer. It was simply stepping back and letting them face the natural consequences of their choices without my interference. Sarah has to work for the first time in years. The children have to build an authentic relationship with their father instead of a fantasy of victimhood. They all have to live with the knowledge that they had someone who genuinely tried to love them, and they threw it away for money and manipulation. Some nights, I think about those 3 years, the thousands of dollars spent, the emotional energy depleted, the dignity surrendered piece by piece. But mostly I think about the lesson learned. Kindness without boundaries isn't kindness at all. It's enabling, and love without respect isn't love. It's exploitation. The story ends not with dramatic vengeance, but with simple truth. I saved myself. And sometimes, that's the only person you can save. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.